right. Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning into today's information session for HCLC's newest program, the Hispanic Conservation Leadership Council, or the HCLC. My name is Bianca McGrath-Martinez, and I'm the program manager of HCLC. I've been working with HCLC for about a year now, and I work out of the Rocky Mountain Regional Center, and I'm currently based in Colorado. So during today's information session, we'll be covering HCLC and the work that we do. So our team and advisory board, our vision, mission, and goals, introducing our newest program, the HCLC, and then we're going to describe how to get involved and what next steps should be. So HCLC was founded in 2013 by a group of Hispanic and Latinx elected officials and community leaders from across the Southwest. This group of leaders had concerns about the impact of oil and gas development on the lands where they fish, hunt, camp, hike, and do many other activities that uphold and represent the deep connection that Hispanics and Latinx people have with the land. They were also concerned about the fact that Hispanics and Latinx people are among the racial ethnic groups who are underrepresented in the decision-making processes that impact our air, water, land, health, and communities. So they formed HCLC to help close the gap of underrepresentation when it comes to decision-making by engaging in public land and advocacy conversations, creating greater access and equity to our public lands while connecting to our role as stewards of the land. Today, HCLC is going strong and working to strengthen Hispanic and Latinx voices and visibility in conservation. We joined in partnership with the National Wildlife Federation back in April of 2017, which has given HCLC the resources and capacity necessary to grow our work in the region. We currently work in New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, Nevada, and Colorado. And while our focus is on the conservation of public lands in the American Southwest, our work has a national scope and impact. So HCLC currently has 3 full-time staff, including our executive director, Camilla Simon, our communications coordinator, Amy Dominguez, and myself, the program manager. Currently, we have a summer intern, Andres Fierro Morales, and we're hiring for a policy and advocacy manager. HCLC has an advisory board consisting of 15 members representing the communities that we work in. So HCLC's vision is for there to be strong, culturally rich communities that are connected to nature and each other. Our mission is to empower Hispanic leaders to engage their communities in the conservation of our public lands. HCLC's goals, as stated in our 2020 to 2023 strategic roadmap, include increasing public lands conservation policy wins led by Hispanic leaders, strengthening the Hispanic voice and visibility in public lands decision-making and advocacy, and finally, ensuring financial stability and sustainability for our work. The Hispanic Conservation Leadership Council is HCLC's newest program that will be the main function of achieving the first 2 goals of our strategic plan. Our last goal has been supported by our partnership with the National Wildlife Federation, which Camilla will talk a little bit more about.
All right, thank you, Bianca. I'm Camilla Simon, the Executive Director of HCLC. Thank you for watching this information session. I really appreciate your time and enthusiasm for the Hispanic Conservation Leadership Council. I want to give you a quick history of HCLC so that you understand where we are coming from and also can connect that to where we're going, as you've just heard from our vision, mission, and goals. So in 2013, we launched HCLC with an advisory board of elected officials, and we launched also with a poll that was done in partnership with Latino Decisions. And that poll proved what we've already known for many years, that Hispanics overwhelmingly support conservation. We had that data set to make the case, but just to back that up. So that was really helpful. And we presented that in Washington, DC and around the Intermountain West. In 2014, I was hired as the executive director to run and grow HCLC. And so one of the first things that I did was engage the advisory board and grow it a little bit, because we knew that we wanted to be doing some big things. And we have our advisory board in part to really ground us in the work of our communities. And so we only work in states or places where we have an advisory board member. So that's how that is done. We also, in the initial year that I was here, we did our first strategic plan that outlined what we were going to be working on. And we also did an updated brand identity to kind of bring our brand into something that we felt more accurately reflected who we were. And so you see the picture up there, our current branding. It still looks great. We're really proud of that. In the first strategic plan, we also identified that we wanted to have a storytelling focus. So that's when we really started spending some time building and curating a guest blog series, which is now, I think, 65 guest blogs. The guest blogs are really just wonderful, and I invite you to spend some time reading through some of the stories. All of them have something in common, which is really to tell the story of each person's connection to nature and why they care and why they overwhelmingly support conservation. So I really do invite you to look at that. Our strategic plan also had us really focusing on engagement with federal decision-making processes. So, we were joining and participating in all kinds of hearings and providing comments on various, regulatory decisions. And so that were two areas that we were really focused on. To complement those two efforts, we worked on getting our op-eds and our voices in national and regional papers. And so we've had a lot of success from the regional papers, the state-based papers that you see here, as well as ones in DC. So we've done a lot of that work. And the way that we did that was we worked with the folks that we did the guest blogs with, and we said, let's see how we can, tell your story on different platforms. And so we take a certain aspect of your story that you told on our blog and incorporate that into the op-eds, and we did some LTEs as well. During that startup phase of HCLC, we've had several policy successes, so including a success to get the Land and Water Conservation Fund reauthorized for 3 years. It wasn't at that time, it wasn't permanently authorized, but we were able to be a part of that. We ran huge campaigns to advocate for methane waste prevention. So preventing oil and gas production facilities from venting and flaring gas that they didn't have to pay for, but that wasted the taxpayer resources and polluted our air and our communities. So we were really heavily involved in that. And then we also wanted to provide a template for connected landscapes. So we said, what would it look like if we brought all the stakeholders together at the beginning of a process when we look at, a landscape, in the West, like what we did in Utah outside of Moab. Do we want oil and gas drilling in, through the Arch at Arches National Park, or do we think that maybe it ought to be sited somewhere better, somewhere else? And so we were a part of those discussions. And by the end of that startup phase, we became a program at the National Wildlife Federation. So we joined at a time where we thought, well, either we could spin off as our own 501c3, but then we'll need to focus on kind of building out some infrastructure and getting all of that ready, or let's see about sort of a fiscal sponsor relationship at the National Wildlife Federation, an organization that we had some of our mission complemented each other, and they were really looking for a partner that did what HCLC did. So we joined them with a memorandum of understanding that kind of outlined our autonomy and our advisory board and needing to remain independent and have our own brand and our website. And so we were able to accomplish that. So that was the beginning of the relationship with the National Wildlife Federation. And to this day, We've kind of renegotiated that MOU to continue to allow us to have this special relationship. So getting into the kind of the growth phase of HCLC, I would say that started around 2018. At this point, I think Bianca already mentioned, we have 4 FTEs. 3 of those positions are filled currently, and by myself, Bianca, and Amy. And we have a 4th position that we're hiring for, the policy and advocacy manager, that will be based out of Washington, DC, to represent us there. We also have an extremely active advisory board in fundraising, in our programs, showing up all the time to our events, and really being a core part of what we do. We've also just really grown our programs. So we spent a lot of time thinking about, beyond our advisory board, we've been engaging with other community leaders. What does that look like if we were to formalize that? And so we'll be talking a little bit more about the Hispanic Conservation Leadership Council. But we've been doing webinars like the Climate Solutions and Action webinars, and the Aguas Vida, and the Cocktails and Conservation, all kinds of different educational opportunities and opportunities to be an advocate and participate in all of these wonderful opportunities that we have to engage in decision-making around public lands and water conservation. So we have these growing programs. We've also demonstrated strong results. We've been a partner of choice. People are reaching out to us, want to be involved, want to know how they could sponsor. We started off with op-eds, and we've been working to develop more of a situation where reporters come to us asking if we know somebody who would like to be interviewed. And I think that will be part of what the HCLC will do. We would go out to members of the HCLC and with those opportunities to speak on the record and be interviewed by reporters. In this growth phase as well, we completed a second strategic plan, actually a refresh of the first one, just to clarify and become more solid in our vision, our mission, and our goals. And we launched that in the beginning of 2020, and it's a 3-year plan, so it goes through 2023. At the end of last year, which was 2020, so at the end of last year, we finished developing a fundraising plan. And so we kicked that off, launched that in 2021, as well as a governance analysis, where we took a really hard look about, again, kind of, do we want to remain a program at the National Wildlife Federation, or is it time for us to be our own entity, our own 501c3? And after a lot of interviews with stakeholders and conversations with our advisory board, we decided that with a renewed memorandum of understanding and some requisites and requirements, we would stay for the foreseeable future at the National Wildlife Federation. It's a mutually beneficial partnership in which our missions are aligned, and we're also, I think, HCLC can play a really crucial role in helping the National Wildlife Federation become a more equitable, inclusive, and just organization. So we have a role in that, and being a partner of them allows us as well to help with capacity for our Conservation Leadership Council. If we have any questions about certain industries or areas, there is just a very large resource and network, and essentially a machine where we can get that information pretty quickly. I'll also mention the website refresh. I hope that you do spend some time on the website. We worked really hard to get it to a place where it's really easy to access the stories and how to be involved. So That was something that we completed and launched early this year in 2021. Finally, I'll just mention again some of the policy successes. The Land and Water Conservation Fund. Finally, we were able to complete that with getting the full funding for that $900 million a year that now no longer has to go through a congressional appropriation process, but that is just dedicated toward land and water conservation projects. And you might be familiar with some of the local parks or recreation facilities that may have benefited from receiving some of those funds. And so that now is something that is permanent. We've worked on some of the wildlife habitat connectivity issues and making sure that wildlife can live and our ecosystems can be healthy for them and us as well. So we've worked on that issue, as well as we've been recognized in the New Mexico House for the work that we're doing, engaging Hispanic communities in all of these issues. So that was also in 2021, where we were acknowledged through a House memorial there. And more recently, we typically have been working at the federal level, but more recently we've been focused on some of the state-based bills. And in New Mexico, an outdoor equity fund and outdoor equity office were developed a couple of years ago, and most recently, a few weeks ago in 2021, Colorado had the same, an equity fund, which is really exciting fund to use lottery monies in order to fund grant programs to get underserved and marginalized youth out in the outdoors. So that's kind of the general history of HCLC in a nutshell. And before we get into some of the policy pieces, I wanted to play a video for you because I think it really grounds us in HCLC's work. So we'll play that right now.
We have a very rich history and a very strong connection to the land. Some people see the land as the topography, the boundaries, maybe mineral rights, a place to exploit. We see the land as where my father was born, where the blood from his umbilical cord soaked into this earth. We have a connection to the land. We have querencia and querencia, and querencia is a love for the land. We don't see it as ownership. We're just the caretakers. Although I'm the seventh generation here, that's what I've always been taught. It's my job and my family's job to take care of this land for generations that we will never get to meet. And the same goes with public lands. My name is Rock Ulibarri. I'm an advisory board member of HCLC. I'm a native New Mexican who hails from the original 36 families that settled Las Vegas Grandes. I'm also the seventh generation here on our family's land in El Porvenir, New Mexico. I first got involved with HCLC a year ago. I was in Washington, D.C. for the National Association of Counties. The purpose of HCLC was to make sure that Hispanics and Latinos have a voice, have a seat at the table, that our voices are heard when it comes to public lands. For the first year, we worked on the methane rule. The methane rule stops venting, flaring, and leaking of natural gas, which New Mexico is #1 for wasted natural gas. Now, one of the critical issues is the public lands transfers. Public lands transfers is transferring federal lands into state hands, and states are allowed to sell these lands off to private individuals. Once they go into state hands, it's very easy for the land commissioner, the state land commissioner, to sell off these lands, and that's what we're opposed to. We want access to our lands. To understand the issue of public lands, you have to understand the history of the public lands, particularly here in New Mexico and in the Southwest in general. The vast majority of all these public lands were once Spanish land grants or Mexican land grants, and they were community land grants. So, in a sense, they were public lands then because they belonged to the community. Our future generations have a right to have access to these public lands, and it's our duty to ensure that this land is protected for them. There's nothing sadder than seeing a chained lock gate cutting us off from our access of our public lands with no trespass signs and private property signs. property and lands that we used to cherish for generation after generation. Public land, by definition, is owned by all of us. It's our culture, it's our tradition, and it's our history. It connects us to our ancestors, and it guides how we see our future. HCLC provides a platform for our voices to be heard. If you are a Latino who loves the outdoors, we hope that you can join HCLC today.
All right, I hope you enjoyed that video.
Very rich history.
We love that video with our advisory board chair, Rock Leebody. So just wanted to give you a little bit of a flavor of where we're coming from. And of course, everybody has their own story, different stories, but we're really hoping that when we talk about voice and visibility, that's kind of where we're going. So next, I wanted to go through 3 of our policy priority areas with some examples in them. So our first policy priority area is protecting and restoring cultural, ecological, iconic, and recreational lands in the Southwest. And this has materialized in our campaigns to protect the Grand Canyon from uranium mining, in our work in the Upper Rio Grande watershed. And what it really means is that we want to protect and restore those lands and waters that support traditional uses and practices, that support sacred places and culturally significant places, and that also promote and cultivate sustainable economies. We know that people and nature are intrinsically interconnected, and while maybe there's some spaces that people should let rest, we believe that we are a part of nature, and we need to be in that nature, and we think that we can do that in a sustainable way. The second area of our policy priorities is promoting climate solutions on public lands. And what we're trying to do in this policy area is prioritize the transition away from fossil fuels. I think it's not going to, we hope that it's quick, but we understand that it's not going to be, and a lot of things need to be in place, but we need to do that now. And so that is a priority for us. We want to increase responsible energy development. The example that I mentioned previously about the methane waste prevention rule is a really good example of this, that if we're going to have fossil fuel energy development on our public lands, then it needs to be done in a responsible way. That means we can't have operators be venting and flaring or not fixing their infrastructure, with that have leaks. That gas, that natural gas that leaks out is a resource. It's a precious resource that is not renewable. And even more, it goes up into our air, pollutes our air, and also has an incredible climate impact. So we think that that's really important. We also want to restore forests and watersheds through proactive management. And so we've seen what happens when we have these tinder boxes. They just, they go up, and you have these massive wildfires. It's not good for communities. It's not good for the forest. It's not good for our water. It's not for any of that. And it's definitely not good for the climate. All of that carbon that should be stored in the trees and in the ground is let up into the air, into the atmosphere. We want to bolster sustainable agriculture, and we've held a Climate Solutions in Action webinar on this to learn more about those opportunities. And it, I think it's a wonderful opportunity for farmers and ranchers to be a part of the climate solution and to be compensated for that as well. As we discussed, the things that you can do to sequester carbon are amazing. And then through all of this, I think, when we're talking about the transition away from fossil fuels, we really have to promote those clean economy industries and jobs. And so we're working on all of these things in this area. The third policy priority area is strengthening equitable and inclusive decision-making processes. And this kind of is the thread that runs through everything that we do. We want to support and cultivate robust community-driven decision-making processes. We want to expand access to broadband because that's essential. Now everything is online, information is online, how you can submit public comment online, access different forums and meetings online now. So it's really important that we have that for our decision-making processes. And then also, I think HCLC has a growing role for strengthening stakeholder relationships with each other and decision makers. We've been participating in several meetings with the nominee for the Bureau of Land Management Director. Because we have that access, we want to extend that with all of you and everybody in our communities. And so we think that we can strengthen the relationship between you all as well as between you and those decision makers. So those are just some of our policy priority areas. Of course, there's a lot more specifics, but I think this provides a really good overview. And now I will pass it back to Bianca.
Great. Thank you, Camilla, for that overview of HCLC's work. So now we're going to transition into the HCLC, or the Hispanic Conservation Leadership Council. And I'm going to talk to you about the program and then next steps and how to get involved. So since HCLC's inception in 2013, we've been engaging with Hispanic leaders to make sure that they are front and center for conservation issues that they are or want to be involved with. So by creating the HCLC, we are formalizing the work that HCLC has been doing for years. Working off of HCLC's strategic planning, the HCLC's vision is to have Hispanic leaders that are widely recognized for their contributions to public lands conservation. The goal of formalizing this work into a program is to increase public lands conservation policy wins led by you all, and to strengthen the Hispanic voice and visibility in public lands decision-making. There are four main areas of purpose for the HCLC. Those areas of purpose include formalizing this network of Hispanic conservation leaders so that our power is recognized in the space. The second purpose is to have an organized space for leaders to bring their own and their communities' diverse voices and perspectives to conservation policy decision-making tables. HCLC works with a variety of stakeholders who bring many unique ideas and opinions to the table. We want for that to be reflected in this space and for the power behind varying Hispanic voices to turn into tangible and effective policy change that is for the benefit of our communities. Additionally, members of the HCLC will have the necessary resources to be informed on public lands conservation policies. Community leaders and elected officials are often expected to know everything about a lot of things. The member resource portal will provide members the information that they need to stay up to date on public lands conservation issues. And lastly, the purpose of a group like the HCLC is to have maximum visibility and impact on conservation policy actions that are taken by members of the council. The Hispanic community has always been a major driver of conservation and really any land-based movement, and this program will bring light to that reality. So as a member of the program, you will be connected to local, state, and federal opportunities to act on conservation policies. These opportunities will include sign-on letters, op-eds, LTEs, blog posts, congressional and legislative meetings, interviews, and a chance to review and consult on policy. Members will be connected with each other through online communications platforms, virtual and in-person meeting opportunities, and policy committee work that is all facilitated by HCLC staff. Through the online membership portal and other communications platforms, you will have access to fact sheets, policy briefings, talking points, virtual and in-person trainings, social media guidance, funding opportunities, and all necessary resources for you to be informed on public lands conservation policies. So with HCLC's support and platform, members will be able to communicate successes, policy actions, and key issues. You'll also be connected to conservation issues through the form of committees. So these committees will allow folks to apply their expertise and interests on certain issues, such as riparian and wildlife connectivity corridors, climate change, and other specific areas of focus. Members of the HCLC will also act as advisors to ECHO so that we better understand your community's landscape. We want to know information about your community, such as socioeconomics, access to public lands, pollution, cumulative impacts, best way to outreach and connect, and any information that will allow ECHO and the HCLC to consider and serve your constituents and community. And lastly, as a member of the HCLC, you are encouraged to be a spokesperson for ECHO and our work and our greater mission. And so we'll provide the proper training and resources that will allow you to be confident in spreading that message. So now I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about what a commitment to this program and this council will look like. The HCLC will consist of at least 75% elected officials from the states that we currently work in, which include New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, Nevada, and Utah. As we get this program off the ground, ECHO will aim to have 50 participants in 2021, 75 in 2022, and 100 in 2023. The yearly additions will be staggered in consideration of membership limits and staff and program capacity. The membership limit for the HCLC is 2 years, and members will have the opportunity to recommit after that term ends. The monthly commitment will be for 3 to 5 hours a month, but that time commitment can vary depending on what focused issue committees positions you choose to be a part of. There is no cost to participate in this program, but ECHO recommends a $5 to $10 a month donation to support staff time and the development of council resources. In addition to time, there is a commitment for council members to complete at least 3 actions in their first year on the council. Examples of those actions include like authoring an op-ed, doing an event with us, or writing a blog. Lastly, ECHO is committed to increasing diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, and environmental justice in all elements of our work, including this program. The membership of this council should be representative of and inclusive to the diverse cultures, races, geographies, histories, and lifestyles of Hispanic people. In this council, we welcome diverse skill sets, experiences, and perspectives, and new members will be considered based on geography, professional and community experience, and interests. The HCLC will have quarterly meetings that will involve all members of the council, but there will be intermittent meetings for members that are involved in issue-specific committees. Members will be provided monthly email communications from ECHO with organizational and program updates and member opportunities such as funding. Members will also have access to a private portal through our website that will house all necessary resources and meeting notes. So as next steps for getting involved with the program, we invite you to fill out the interest form, and you'll find the link to that provided down below in the video notes. We will be onboarding members later this summer. And for this first round of onboarding, we will only be recruiting at most 25 members, and that's for staggering purposes that I had mentioned before. The people that are selected will be reflective of the criteria listed in the council membership portion of this session. The onboarding session happening later on this summer will be a mandatory session. Members will receive their welcome package in the mail, and then we'll receive training on accessing resources and what to expect as a member of the HCLC. And after we've onboarded our first round of members, we will have our first council meeting in Q4 of this year. In addition to accessing the interest form, you can also access an FAQ about the program below and in the video notes. And if you have any additional questions regarding ECHO or this program, please reach out to me. My email, I'll put it down below, but it's also in the slide. So bianca@echoonline.org. And we look forward to seeing and hearing from you all soon.